All right, folks. Welcome to the sixth edition of the Left, the Right, and the Absurd. Tonight we have we were only planning for two topics, but with recent current events, we thought we'd start things off with discussing the situation in Paris a little bit. We're just gonna touch on it briefly for you guys. Um, I mean, personally, I don't have much to say. I'll leave it up to these guys here.
And then what else are we going to talk about tonight?
We're also going to be moving into education after Paris, and then from there we're going to be moving on to dietary habits and stuff like that. We're primarily going to focus on the American diet, since most of us live, or all of us live in the United States.
Cool. So for France, I think that's just a manifestation of policy proposals that we had for the last 50 years. I mean, that's what we've got.
Yep.
And no doubt the refugees definitely played a part. I think no one could argue against that. I mean, obviously, having a ton of people that are not part of your culture or religion or speak the same language is going to lead to conflict. And the fact that ISIS members are able to sneak in with the refugees is obviously a problem. But the fact that France completely, it makes gun control so stringent you could barely carry a firearm in public, and then lets all these refugees in and bans discrimination, so there's no recourse for these people that are living in France naturally. It is a recipe for disaster, and unfortunately, that's what happened.
Yeah, on the gun control thing, I saw this one stat that said there's about like 2.19 million legal firearms in France, and there was like something like 17 million illegal or unregistered firearms. So that's not really like curbing the problem of people having guns and like
which isn't even a
preventing
problem.
shootings. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
And something that I heard about that was that, in fact, like unless you're a government agent or connected politically to the ruling,
yeah, it's
party
like
in power,
impossible to
you
get
can't
one.
carry. You can't
Yeah.
carry in public.
Well,
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest arguments against gun control is the fact that taking guns from the people just makes things more dangerous because it puts
Oh, absolutely.
guns in the hands of people that it puts them in the hands of criminals, and by criminals I mean actual criminal, or I mean like violent criminals that want to steal money from everyday people and politicians and those who protect them.
Right.
And you can see this, I mean, every mass shooting we've had, like I think it's like 98% of mass shootings that have happened in the United States since gun controls went into effect were done in gun-free zones. Since gun-free zones were put into effect.
Right.
So obviously, the only thing that gun-free zones actually do is take hands out of the law-abiding people and make it so that they can't protect themselves against someone who doesn't care about gun laws.
And the one thing I wanted to add about France, and then I guess I'm done with it, is I feel like they kind of did it to themselves. I know that kind of sounds like a harsh thing to say, but I'll tell you why. So they'd been bombing territory in Syria in 2014, and recently ISIS had released a video in their country, in a French language video, saying they're warning them not to get involved in the Syrian conflict. But the president, Francis Hollande, decided to take out an ISIS base that was in Syria, and claims that they didn't kill any civilians while destroying it. He had it ordered destroyed because it was a national security risk to France, so they said. And then something like that happens. It's just like the combination of their foreign intervention in things that they have no business being involved in, and the gun-free zone, I think, was part of the reason that happened in France. Which it's just a terrible tragedy for the people that were there, but they really need to get their fucking government under control, because that's bad shit.
I also think we should briefly touch on the fact that France currently isn't the only country going through strife right now.
No, definitely not.
With suicide bombings and terrorist attacks, but with natural disasters as well. We've had earthquakes in multiple countries that are extremely devastating. We've had suicide bombings in countries like Lebanon, specifically Beirut. And, I mean, I feel it's honestly hypocritical for most of these people that are stating, oh, I stand with France, when we've got countries like Lebanon and Korea that are also going through these issues and losing tons of lives as well. I mean, if you're going to stand up for humanity, do it whole fucking heartedly. Stand for
I
humanity.
think
Become
you can
Don't-
understand why that happens, though. I mean, Paris is a capital of a major country. Like it's a huge Western country that most people know. I mean that's a reality that I don't like. I'm not saying that's a good I'm not saying it's a good thing, but the fact of the matter is when you say something like Lebanon or Beirut, people don't know where those countries are, and they're much less likely to be concerned about the people that live there versus a country like Paris or like
Well, the
France.
thing about Beirut is the capital of Lebanon, and it is a huge
Yeah, so
part of Lebanon.
thinking about Kenya. Sorry.
From everything that I've heard from my friends that came from Lebanon, it's a beautiful city and a huge deal. So to me, having Lebanese friends and them having family there, I think it's just as huge a deal. I mean, that's all personal opinion, but on top of that, I also think it's wrong for people to sit here and say, "Oh, I stand in solidarity with this and this," yet they'll go out 10 minutes later, go to the fucking local Burger King and order a goddamn hamburger. I mean,
What?
most people don't see it the same way I do.
Non sequitur.
I think it's completely hypocritical to stand with one fucking species and not defend other sentient creatures in their fucking...
Well,
We'll
actually,
hit
talk
on
about
that whenever we
later
get to
on.
veganism.
Yeah, that's veganism, and that's kind of a non sequitur based on what we're talking about. But one of the other things I wanted to address, I'm not a nationalist by any stretch. Like I'm very, very opposed to nationalist tendencies, but I think it's very telling that the first thing France does after this attack is close their borders. They immediately stop and halt completely all of the refugees coming into their country. And while I'm not a huge fan of Trump or anything like that, but he's trying to do the exact same thing if he's elected president. And whether or not it works, I guess we'll see. But I think it's very, very interesting that they decided to do that.
If it's not in
one
everyone's
quick
best
question.
interest
Connor had something to say. Let me go.
Yeah.
if it's not in everyone's best interest to welcome refugees into the country, which it honestly isn't, because letting refugees into a country automatically establishes a risk of people who have mindsets of violence against you simply because of where you live.
Right.
That's a fucking bad idea. You don't have a moral obligation to house refugees.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think the problem with that is it's a lot of these countries have welfare states, and so whenever these refugees come in, they take welfare, which normally whenever you have a migration, like if you had a free market and you had a migration of people to a different area, it'd be for economic reasons, and they'd have to come and have an economic incentive to move to that place and contribute to the economy of the country that they were going to. But now they don't, because they can move to these places or be refugees in these places and draw welfare, which doesn't require them to go out and like really produce in the economy, so they can stay kind of in their same little bubble and have sustenance without actually having to produce a whole lot. So you get this whole class of people that will stay, like you get this class of people that will stay in their mindset and they won't adapt to the culture. They'll just stay static how they were from the place that they came. Nothing changes because they don't have to assimilate into the culture and deal with like the society at large on a regular basis if they don't want to, and that's usually what happens.
Wasn't this a major issue in England with a lot of the people migrating there a couple of years ago? I think, what was it, 3 years ago?
What they do in England, I visited Scotland this past summer, and what they do is they'll come in to work, so they'll move to the country, work for X amount of weeks, they'll get welfare and healthcare benefits and stuff like that, and then they'll just leave.
Like leave their jobs or leave the country?
Like that. They're sucking money out of the economy by taking advantage of the welfare system.
The one thing I can see how this can apply to some countries, but I don't think it would really apply to every single country, especially one like the U.S. With Trump's idea of closing off our southern borders. I think to close off our southern borders is actually quite ridiculous.
No, I would agree. But the problem that we have as a country is we have high wages, and then people come in, and instead of wages falling like they should in a regular market economy, they stagnate. And some people that are coming into the country get jobs, and they get paid those high wages, and the rest go on to welfare rolls. And like Eric said, this can only lead to bad outcomes when it comes to the rest of society.
Yeah.
So, do we want to move into the next topic?
I'd like something else about this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we went on a bit of a tangent with Paris, so I think we should move into education.
Wait, can I say one thing? Is that
Yeah.
I was not at all surprised that it was an Islamic attack, and I know that's a bit odd because, I'm pretty far left-wing. I know a lot of other people on the left would condemn me for saying that, but I think it'd be naive to say that Islam didn't play a pretty big role just as a religion in this attack. And it's not just because of Western imperialism that caused this. It's that
Well, and I think
it's part of it's where Islam is right now in its point in its development as a religion.
Yes, I agree.
Like, I mean,
agree with
Christianity has gone through its Reformation period, and now it's not so fucking extreme.
Yes.
Islam hasn't had that.
I'm not surprised at all by this, though. I mean, it's something, I don't remember the exact numbers that I saw, but it was something like 94% of all terrorist attacks are either carried out by Shia or Sunni Muslims. So when a terrorist attack happens, I'm not at all surprised when I hear that it's a Muslim that did it. I am surprised when it's somebody from a different faith, because the attacks are so few and far between that it's like, oh, it wasn't a Muslim this time.
Okay, a few more things about the people in Syria, the Syrian refugees that everybody is calling to bring in and say we need to help these people. Most of them are young men who are more
fighting age,
economically stable or in good standing when it comes to the quality of their lives, and they just want to leave the country and go party in Greece. And another thing about Paris too, the passports that were recovered from the bodies initially led the media to report that the terrorists were from Syria, but it now looks like the passports were fakes made in Turkey.
Interesting.
And I think that's important to know.
That's interesting. But you're absolutely correct. And if you have a large amount of young fighting age males coming into your country with, like you said, no security in their finances and not really looking to work, that's not a great situation you're putting yourself in.
Yeah.
Right.
But so education, we want to move into that. Anybody else have anything else on France? I mean, obviously it's a huge tragedy, and I'm very, very sorry that it happened, but that's the reality that we live in, unfortunately.
So I think there's a few points that we should really touch on with education, not just discussing our current education system, but the idea of colleges and the fact that we, as a culture now, necessitate a college education for some of even the most remedial of jobs.
Which don't require...
Right.
And I think it's absurd. It's a method. I mean, most of the universities most people that go into universities go into extremely large amounts of debt. And
right. Yeah, and it's absolute bullshit too. Because like you've heard from a young age, like everybody here, I'm sure, has heard like, oh yeah, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. Like you've just had it drilled into you since you were fucking old enough to walk. Like, and it's nuts because you go spend all this money, and it's now usually longer than 4 years. I mean, I know it's going to take me longer than 4 years, but you spend all this time and money trying to get a college degree, and a lot of the degrees that people get like aren't really even worth going to school for. Like, they get out and they have a shitload of debt. And they're like, oh, I can't find a job with my fucking liberal arts degree or my gender studies degree. I majored in
English literature. I definitely didn't see that coming.
My cousin's doing that. I was like, well, knock your fucking self out if you want to be paying that forever. But like, it's stupid.
And that's the thing I see is so many people go to school, and I don't want to sound mean, when I say this, but so many people go to school for a wasted degree that will do absolutely nothing.
Right, and not everybody like belongs in school. Like college is not for fucking everybody, right? Like that's just just how it is.
I did 1 year in community college, and I found it wasn't for me. But interestingly enough, one of the classes, my English class, actually did a bit on whether school was for everyone or not, and I full-heartedly support the idea that it's not for everyone, and there's no necessity for every single person to go to school unless they just are looking for debt.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's nuts. I see people all the time. Like, there's this one dude that I'm actually in a class with right now. We're doing a group project, and the dude never fucking shows up. Like, he'll just come on random days, and he'll, like, text us, be like, yo, do we have class today? And we'll be like, yeah, we have a test. Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, shit, we have a test? I mean, it's just, like, people like that don't fucking belong in college. Like, if you're not going to go to, like, learn and do the work and get the knowledge that you need, like, in a relevant field, like, there's no point to be there, right? Like, that's just a waste of money. That's, like, tens of thousands of dollars that you will never, ever see again that you've absolutely wasted.
And it's not just that, it's also, you got to think, they're filling up, I mean, the people that are doing this are usually in baseline classes that apply to some, like, basic-ass degree, and they're filling these slots for people that A, probably actually want to go to class, and B, need this so that they can actually get credits for something that's not, I mean, wouldn't be pertinent to their degree, but is a requirement to graduate.
Well, yeah, because they want their students to come out well-rounded. I mean, that's what's going on there, and it makes sense because if you go in for, like, say me, I'm an economics degree, like they want you to come out with more in your head than just economics.
Well, no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is these people, like Eric was saying, that don't show up to class, that are filling these slots in courses that other people need, and could be sitting there while this guy's sitting in his fucking dorm room smoking a fucking doobie because, oh, well, yeah, I want to smoke pot instead of go to the class, but I'm still going to for it because my parents are paying for it. And if I don't get this fucking, if I don't go to this school, and it's nothing against pot, I just used it as a reference because we can deny it as much as we want. Pot doesn't equate to laziness. Laziness coupled with pot use leads to more laziness.
Yes.
So, I mean, the example isn't pothead's a lazy piece of shit. The example is the lazy piece of shit that smokes too much pot because his parents give him all this fucking money is going to stay a lazy piece of fucking shit.
Yeah. Matt, you were going to say something?
I was going to say I think the root of that is that people don't necessarily go to school to learn at all.
No, a lot of people
don't care about
party.
They don't care about learning at all. They care about getting good grades, and there's a huge difference between getting good grades and actually learning something. And that's the reason why kids will cheat on tests and such, is because they just want that A, and they don't actually want the knowledge that comes along with that A.
That's true.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think education's become more about testing and not about learning. Like, exactly. A lot of it's just about getting a grade. Like, I know like K through 12 more so than universities. It's really test oriented because the better that your school performs on state tests, the more funding you get. Yep. So they use that funding to try to like up their test scores to get more funding. Like, it's just a cycle that they do to increase funding.
All that you focus on in K through 12 is, hey, do this so that you can be prepared for the standardized test that's going to be
absolutely
fucking worthless.
Can you regurgitate this information that the teacher told you onto a piece of paper? And if you can, then you can pass.
Right.
And one of the things about
the problem with go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, yeah. So, like, one of the things that I especially hear about why college is like so like bad is because it's so expensive. Right, it's really, really expensive to go to college. I wrote a piece on this. If you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like to read a little bit of it as far as like tuition goes and why it's been skyrocketing so much.
No, go ahead. Please do.
Okay. So, Let's see. So since their expansion under the Clinton, Bush, and Obama administrations, the limit for the amount of loans you could take out in a year jumped from $2,500 a year to $31,000 over 4 years. In theory, this was a fantastic policy that allowed more and more people access to the cash that they needed to attend universities. In practice, it has made the federal government the main lender of choice with their relaxed policies of repayment. This has led to a quadrupling, even after being adjusted for inflation, of the amount of loan money offered to the offered by the federal government. Still a positive, right? No. It costs about $8,000 a year to educate an undergrad at the average residential college, according to research done by Neil McCluskey at the Cato Institute. But the average cost, including room and board, charged at public university is $16,000 and $37,000 at private ones. Why? Because these for-profit universities, and public ones as well, realized that with the abundance of cash students had access to from the federal government, they could charge more and more exorbitant tuition rates and make money in the process. So it's not that, these evil banks or these it's not that the banks are making it more expensive to actually go to college. The reality of it is that government allowing people the access to such easy cash has made it so that colleges are like, yeah, I mean, they're getting the cash anyway. That's just raise tuition rates. It's easy. It's just simple money. Let's make some money.
Yeah, it's kind of like in economics. Whenever wages rise, like prices also tend to rise too. Like that's just kind of what happens. Students have more availability to cash. Like the prices of tuition is going to go up, right? Like that's just common sense.
Yeah.
Back to you guys saying where you were saying that you don't think college is for everyone. This kind of relates in a way in that I have this idea that I think that it is okay to give up. And one thing that I think it is okay to give up on for some people is certainly school. People always say that you should, quote, never give up on anything.
Right.
And that, like I do think you should give up. If you're not good at something, if it's just wasting your time and you will never be good at it, you don't care to be good at it, then I think it is perfectly acceptable to just give up and say, you know what, this isn't for me.
Right, yeah, people push that never give up shit, but I mean, it's like there's just some things that certain people are not good at. Like if you're not good at school, there's no shame in that. Like you're good at something else, and that's fine. Go do that.
Exactly.
Go do what makes you happy. Like
I
hate
society
that there's
also will tell you that like we can't be good at everything, and then maybe it's just not for you. But then
it's not the same whenever it's about school. It's like no, everybody has to be good at school.
The society itself is contradictory.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Connor, do you want to say something?
Yeah, applying the principle of never giving up is a fantastic way to develop irrational or emotional attachments to some kind of goal. And a goal isn't exactly what is a goal. Achieving a goal isn't what produces happiness. It's the quality of that goal to open you to the lifestyle that will make you happy.
And that's something. I think that's kind of your nihilist tendencies coming into play there, right? I mean, you're saying. Well, I say that kind of.
Well, I feel like he's right though, because I mean, if you set goals that are irrelevant and that don't matter to you and you don't value them, then there's no point in achieving them. Like achieving them is not going to make you feel good, right?
No, I kind of liken this to like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football, and I just want to tell him, hey, give up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. But I think one of the things we were trying to talk about in this episode was public education at the K through 12 level and how broken it is. Because what public education does is it dulls the wits of the populace when their minds are most impressionable and teaches, oh well, this great thing called the state is there for you to help you, and it's so benevolent, and we need it to maintain a civilized society, and it's such a falsehood that is perpetuated on all of these people.
Can I say the same for private schools, though, as someone who's went to one? And I know anecdotal evidence isn't the greatest.
Yeah, what experience did you have?
We didn't learn evolution there, so we were very ill-prepared when I actually went to a public high school.
Was that
Did you go to a religious private school?
Yes, I went to a Catholic school.
That's why.
I did that in 7th grade, so I completely understand that, man. Or 8th grade.
I did it in 2nd grade. It was awful.
We were forced to go to church every Thursday. I mean,
every Thursday? That's kind of weird.
I know, it's weird. I don't know.
I only had to go the first Friday of every month, but we didn't learn anything. I literally did no projects and still passed.
Well, the thing is, somehow
we
private schools test higher than public schools, even with that, which I think is very interesting.
But weren't we just kind of condemning the whole testing thing?
I mean, we were, but I thought it was interesting that they always test higher.
I think my guitar teacher had an interesting thing, and he taught me this when I was still in high school. I was like a freshman, and I finally learned this. A parent has the right to write their child out of standardized testing. So you don't actually have to sit there and mark A for every answer.
Cole, you're lagging.
Yeah, you're lagging out there, buddy.
Lazy.
And when he taught me about this, I actually got my mother to start doing this. But he did this for all of his kids throughout all of school.
What you said is you put A for every answer, and I thought it was funny because I actually legitimately did that one time. Even when it was you was a whatever. Like I actually had to write something down. I just drew my own A and then filled it in.
That's creative. Props to you for that. But
it didn't count for anything, but whatever.
Right. Well, is this like the state standardized testing, or for the ACT and SAT too? Because I mean, if you want to get into college, you need to take the ACT and the SAT. That's a simple.
State standardized testing is
Okay. Yeah. Because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's literally the whole goal. I've had family that's worked in education for years. Like my grandfather, my aunt, and my mother have all been working at schools for years. And all of them have admitted that standardized testing does absolutely nothing but get the school more funding.
Yeah, that's all it's really for.
And the thing is, they came right out and told us that this does not count for anything. So nobody took it seriously. I mean, I knew tons of people that just
how fucking stupid.
They didn't even open up the question book. They just started filling in bubbles.
Like how fucking stupid could they be if they're like, oh yeah, this is for our funding, but by the way, it's not going to count you guys for anything. Like, don't worry about it. Like, what?
Well, I took it, and I'll tell you why. I took it because I wanted to see where I was developmentally. Like, I wanted to see, where am I in relation to most other people? And, generally I was in, like, the advanced science, reading, and math, whatever. But that was just something for me that I wanted to see. I don't give a shit about state funding. I just actually wanted to see where I was.
Right.
I was never like that. I was always the fuck this shit. I don't care. I was always, like, the first one to finish because I just flipped through the pages and marked whatever the fuck I felt like.
Well, I want to ask you about that too. Not necessarily related to standardized testing, but like, did you ever feel that way? Just like in school, just in general, you're like, fuck this shit, it's pointless.
Yeah, I almost pretty much from personal experience, I cut by with the least amount of effort possible with school.
And
I feel like that's what government schools that are K through 12. I mean, even private schools too can be. That just encourage fucking people to not care anymore.
And what a lot of you guys don't know is I actually graduated high school late because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take summer courses so that I could graduate.
I almost had done that, but
a few months after my friends. Most of what I took like Algebra 1 like 3 or 4 times.
I took Algebra 1 twice and passed it with a 60.
Is that why you're a mutualist?
The only reason I passed high school math, the geometry portion, was because I had a friend in there that we would both cheat.
Nice.
And
that's I feel like that's what schools do. They encourage cheating. Like, people don't fucking care because again, it's all about the test. Nobody wants to learn.
Yeah, and the thing is, we would do it blatantly. The class was overfilled. There was no room. We sat on the outside of the classroom. There was desks right along the window area that was facing outside. Instead of facing the desk, we would sit on top of the desk and stare at the person right in front of us.
And Cole, let me just ask: at this moment, take yourself back to this time. Didn't you just want to give up, and do you think it would have benefited you to have just quit? As in the math portion.
I think just quitting school in general would have benefited me.
Right, and I feel like there's a bunch of, like, in high school you take all these really unnecessary classes and shit. Like, when was the last time you used the Pythagorean theorem? Fucking never, I promise
yesterday.
you. Shut up, you faggot. Anyway. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm
in econ though, so like it's something that you're gonna have to use eventually.
I know, but like that's a little different for you. It's like you are taking shit that is like relevant to you. Not everybody is gonna be an econ major, right? Like, there's just it's a lot of shit that you don't need. Like, but they won't tell you, like, whenever you get out of school, it's like, oh, here's what taxes are. These are why we have taxes, or all this other shit. Like, it's just stuff like that.
They don't even tell you why. They just say, hey, here's taxes. If you don't pay it, they're gonna kidnap you and take you to prison for 10 years.
They don't tell you that. They're just like, you need to pay taxes and pay your fair share is basically what they tell you.
Pay your fair share, because if you don't, you're an evil person.
They don't even make kids take like a fucking personal finance class to like budget their money. Like, it's just shit like that I don't know. I feel like they replace a lot of important shit with just mediocre, like, redundant, unnecessary shit.
I was lucky that I had a teacher that taught us about credit cards and debit cards, but that was a fucking math teacher, and the only reason he did that was because he had time to.
Right.
I don't know.
But were it not for that, I never would have known shit like that, and I probably, at this point in my life, probably would have had at least 2 or 3 credit cards that were probably fucking maxed out.
Can we talk about maybe just teachers for a second here?
Yeah.
I have had some great teachers, and I've had some awful teachers.
Yep.
I think the big thing is, like, the effect that the good teachers have had on me was way more than that of the bad ones. Because the bad ones, you have one bad teacher, and then you're just kind of done. Like, you never contact them again. But some of the teachers that I had in high school, I still talk with, like, on a weekly basis, which I think is really, really, like, good for the development of somebody at that age. But even as you, like, go through, like, somebody that you just need to, like, get advice from because is a good teacher.
And didn't you want to do their work if it was a good teacher?
Yes.
And if it was an awful teacher, you just did not care about doing their work?
Yep.
And I think it really differs from the university level to the...
Holy shit, yeah, it does.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true.
Level. Because the teachers that teach in universities, they, for the most part, I can't say all of them. I honestly don't feel like saying the most part, but from my personal experience, the ones that teach at universities actually give a shit about what they're teaching.
With the exception of TAs. TAs don't give a shit. They're there for 2 years and they're getting their masters and then they're gone. But the actual professors, they're like either tenured or not, like the associate professors too, they generally actually care about what they're doing.
Yeah, and in my experience, I've had some pretty good teachers or professors that actually care. Even the GTAs I've had have been pretty good too. So like, but I feel like there's more incentive for them to like actually do shit because they have to. I mean, they still like can get tenure and be there forever. But I mean, like, the whole point is that like they like what they're doing and they're there because they want to be there, right? Like,
exactly. And I feel like a lot of like elementary, middle, and high school teachers have all really lost that. They just go through so much shit. Because I think one of the greatest differences is in K through 12, you are forced to be there. Those kids don't want to be there.
Right.
And those teachers see that every single day.
And I'm not one for defending state education, but I mean, I think I understand why teachers that are in the K-12 system kind of check out, because the kids, obviously they're teaching kids, they're not teaching adults, so they can't hold them to the same standard that they would adult students, like in the way that they can in college. But at the same, but it's just a system where that they have to deal with immature people, and that have no incentive at all to actually be there.
And I think the high school level is probably the worst of that bunch, because that's the point when
you're just like, fuck this shit, I'm done with it. Like, can I like move on with my life now? But then you have 4 more years of that shit, and you're like, it wears on you. Like, it really does.
That's probably why some people don't go to college, is because of what they've dealt with in high school.
I think that's
why I wanted to take a year off after I was done with high school, and my parents were like, no, fuck you, you're going to college immediately after this. And I was pissed. Like, high school was like fucking I don't know. I was like so ready to be done with high school, and then they're just like, nope, you're going back at it. Like, it's kind of counterproductive. Like, if you want to go learn, you should go because you want to go, not because someone else is telling you should be there.
And what's sad is that I think we can all agree here is that kids and just humans in general have a natural tendency to want to learn, and this only furthers my idea that well, it's not necessarily my idea, but whatever, that school is not about learning anymore.
Yeah, it's about testing. And it, like, I think a big thing to like. Oh, I'm sorry, Connor. Go ahead.
I think it's more about testing and subverting to authority.
Exactly.
Right, and I think one of the keys to like fixing the problem that we have with our education would be making fucking going to school voluntary. Like, it's compulsory right now for 13 years if you go to kindergarten. Like, I mean, so it's K through 12. It's 13 years. It's 13 years of your life that you'll never fucking get back. And it feels that way. It's like you think that you'll never get it back because you feel like you wasted your time and like you hated every minute of it. Like, if you wanted to be there and like you were willing to like learn shit that you actually cared about and you were like engaged and enthused about going to school because you liked what was going on, you weren't being forced to go, I feel like you'd have a massive uptick in people that actually like were wanting to learn and were learning things, not just testing.
And I think there's another thing, is because of the mentality that K through 12 grades create, even those people that are sitting there like, damn, I really want to be here, that actually feel like they're learning something from this, they just get that fucking drained out of them because,
yeah.
I mean, being perfectly honest, the majority is people that don't want to be there.
Right.
Like, you're just sitting in a desk, everyone's looking forward at a, some teacher that's probably not getting paid enough, so they don't care, et cetera, et cetera.
And I was very fortunate because I had a teacher that I had 3 times my freshman year. I had him twice my first semester and once my second semester. And I go into his office hours at least once a week now, and we just talk about like all different types of things, whether it's about life or about like he was an econ professor, so we talk about economics a lot. But those relationships are something that I don't think you'd ever form in high school or middle school or elementary school. One, because you're not developed enough to actually form those kind of relationships, but 2, because the teachers aren't there for you in the same way.
Well, and I feel like they don't treat you in that same manner. Like, you even have to ask their permission to go take a piss. Like, how ridiculous is that?
It's like, it's very authoritarian.
I've almost written an email to administrative staff at my old high school because what I found throughout both middle school and high school is that I was being prepped to go to college. And in high school you have compulsory attendance, you have to deal with security guards, you get detentions and referrals and shit if you cut your classes or even don't even go to fucking study hall.
Yeah.
And you know what? How is that preparing me? Like, at the beginning of my senior year of high school, I was told that I didn't have enough credits scheduled for me to graduate, so I had to switch into another class, and I was made to do that on the spot instead of when normally you're given like a sheet of paper in 2 weeks and you have to sign the paper and your parents have to sign the paper. And I was forced to go into the class, and like the next day I decided I want to drop that class because it was nothing like what it looked like on the internet, and they tried to tell me I couldn't fucking do it. And they're like, oh, you won't be able to do this in college. You know what? I could have dropped courses. I'm still able to drop courses.
I am too, and it's
I could switch
horseshit. Like, they lie to you.
Starting to the fucking semester, nothing was done. I'm worse off in college because of my high school experience. They did nothing. They're exact opposites. You're an individual making your own choices, completely responsible for yourself in university. In high school, you're forced to everything. You don't have choices. Any kind of incentivization for action is taken because the idea that you need to go to college is drilled into your head.
School should be...
I think you hit the nail on the head, Connor.
I knew I was waiting to rant about this for a while.
School shouldn't foster like that inherent desire to learn. Like, I don't think we need to be necessarily pushed that hard towards knowledge. And that's what schooling is.
I don't think
because
a lot
I mean,
of
a
people
lot of
actually
the
want to learn.
shit I like to learn about, I don't learn about, or like in high school, I didn't learn about in class. I was reading on my own.
Exactly,
Like, that's
that's
how
what
I
I
got
do.
into fucking econ and philosophy and like politics and that shit. I was
Exactly.
like doing my own independent research because I wanted to, not because somebody fucking forced me to. Like,
And not just, and I think a societal thing though is that I don't think we as a society, at least young people, actually have a lot of desire to learn. Like regardless of whether you have good teachers or not, I think there's a good half of people that really don't give a shit about learning. They'd rather just, like you said, smoke a doobie, get hammered, and just chill, instead of actually bettering themselves or trying to learn something.
Yeah, I think the problem is twofold. It's our cultural attitudes towards learning, and it's just our current school system. They're both fucked. Like they just there's
if you're smart, you're a nerd. You're a loser. Like you're oh my god, that kid's trying. That kid's actually trying. What the hell?
Yeah, like people that actually like try to do well in school get demonized sometimes, and I think that's like just the fucking pinnacle of anti-intellectualism.
To be,
it's retarded.
Not to be cliche, but Lisa Simpson, probably the prime example here.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you're right.
We look at, I mean, I get it, it's television, but we've got shows like this where they like put these things forth, but no one ever puts two and two together.
You know, you're talking about the kids who try real hard and then get made fun of for it. And,
Yeah.
You know, and perhaps maybe I'm a piece of shit, but some of the people that I see that just all they care about is doing good in school, and they have no social life, and a lot of some of the times no common sense at all. I do make fun of them. In my head, I don't say it out loud, but
I don't think that you're wrong to do that. I mean, like, it's one thing to do good in school, like to want to do good in school and like do well in school and then have a social life and like have friends and shit.
I mean, they make this their life.
Yeah, those are two different things. Like I knew a bunch of kids like that in high school. Like the only thing they could have a conversation about was school. Like it's really fucking sad because like if that's the only thing you can talk about, like nobody's gonna want to be your fucking friend. Like you're gonna be miserable. Like, it sucks.
I know a few people that I've seen girls break down and cry if they get anything lower than 95% on anything. Mm-hmm. And I know a girl who's had at least 3 seizures for the 4 years I've been going to school with her.
I know some people like that too. I have a great story, but I'll tell it whenever we're not on the air.
Because the listeners obviously aren't important.
Well, like, I might tell it someday, but like I'll tell you guys first, and then if we ever circle back to this fucking topic in the future.
This Plato quote I think is very, very eye-opening, and it's that let's see, if a man neglects education, he walks lame to the end of his life. I think that's very, very telling because a lot of the people that I'm with, at least, are lame already and will continue to be lame for the rest of their lives.
Lame-o.
True. Another thing to talk about.
But, I mean...
it's Connor.
Call it something to say.
Passion. Public schooling or the current K-12 system does nothing to stimulate passion.
No.
Because the material that you're given and even the material that you're allowed to sign up for, very often it's created for you. It's a cookie cutter. I can make this analogous to exercise programs. If you go out and buy an exercise program that's got 12 weeks of workouts made for you, you're probably not going to do that well in them because cookie cutter programs don't work for everybody. It's an
exercise.
Right, yeah, that's another problem with...
You have to do what you want.
It's a case-to-case basis.
Happy or be passionate. And
right, like it's
when
not,
you get to college,
education's not a one-size-fits-all, right? Like it should be tailored to you and your individual interests and your likes and your preferences and your dislikes. Like nobody just, the idea that you can have a single best education for everybody is it's nonsense. Because there, like we were saying earlier, some people excel at certain things and others don't. Like I'm a stats major. I know a shitload of people that do not excel at stats at all or math in general. Like, and that's fine, but there's some people that do, and like that's why I think college is a lot better because you get to pick what you want to study, and it's more tailored to you. You get to pick what classes you're in, and I think that's more of a model that needs to be applied to K through 12. Although I'm not really for sending anybody to a K through 12 at this point.
I think this is I think this is something that applies to everything, though. All aspects of life are really case by case basis. Everything's different for every single person.
Right.
And it doesn't just adhere to like certain aspects of life. It's political ideologies, it's philosophy, it's education, it's exercise, it's all these things, and that's why we tried to create this group with a broader spectrum of what we have. And
how about, like, do you guys remember what it was like to have an imagination? But seriously, like, do you know, like, how
really.
schools seem to just crush the creativity out of kids?
Right.
And, you know, perhaps I don't want to just put it onto school. Maybe, you know, there's definitely more factors in that. But I think schooling is definitely a big part in just the destruction of creativity.
Well, I think that's intentional too. Like it just, I don't know. Like there's nothing that fosters creativity. Like, I mean, unless you're taking something like an art class, but they don't.
You should see that. Even in art classes.
Yeah, like, I mean, even then, because, like, I've seen people just, like, take art classes and they just, like, they'll fucking be making a, like, clay pot or whatever. They'll just, like, throw the fucking pot. It looks like absolute shit, not because they're bad, just because they don't care, and then they'll, like, paint it black. And, like, that's their whole fucking artwork.
They give you the illusion that you're actually being creative, but there's still these really strict guidelines on what you have to do. And
you get fucking grades in art class. Like, how do you... art is subjective, and it's, like, a personal thing. How do you grade somebody's fucking art?
It's because you're not being graded on creativity. You're being graded on what the teacher taught you and how you apply those artistic skills to a piece of art that you're assigned to make.
It's almost the opposite of creativity.
It's still about conforming to a cookie cutter program.
Right.
I think a lot of it, though, I mean, I feel like this is probably a fairly good point to start the transition. I feel like
more anecdotal point to make.
Yeah, and after that, I want to hit on something else. I want to hit on solutions that maybe we can bring up, and then we can go and do your veganism.
By the way, we're at 45 minutes.
All right.
46 actually.
Solutions to
why don't you hit the solutions really quick?
So I don't know if you guys have heard of what the hell is it? I think it's called unschooling. It's like where you guys have heard of that?
Yeah, what's his name? The guy in charge of Tesla, Elon Musk or whatever he's doing.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Isn't he?
But like anyway, I've heard that like I think that could be a really good solution. I think homeschooling your kids too would be a good solution. Just like
education.
Yeah, that too. Like I think getting your kids out of that fucking mental meat grinder, that soul crusher that we call K through 12 education would be really, really crucial to having them have a lifelong desire for knowledge, because I think a lot of people that come out of K through 12 education just don't fucking care anymore. They're just like, oh, well, I'm just going to go through life and like just do the bare minimum to get by. And I think that school, as it stands now, kind of fosters that mentality. And I think getting away from that and finding other solutions like unschooling or homeschooling.
The school system puts you in a position where you can be made to fit into a spot in society, when that's not necessarily what the student wants to do. And like, shit.
The other thing I've noticed is
one second. If you go into a school system that just rams into your brain, you got to go to college and get your degree so you can go get a good job. For me, as a person, I'm all out of goals. My life was around getting out of my city and going to university, and now I'm here, and now I'm probably going to be put on academic probation because I'm doing such a terrible job because I wasn't actually prepared for college. I was just sent to go away and go contribute.
Yeah, they kind of give you your goals for you. They don't let you set your own goals, which is like really, I don't know if anybody knows about like psychology or behavioral psychology and goal setting, but it's whenever you are allowed to participate in your goal setting or set your own goals and you make them difficult but attainable, and you share them with other people, is whenever they'll be most successful. And that's the opposite of what happens in government schools. They just tell you, this is what you need to do. You're going to college. That's a goal of yours that you need to have. You should strive for X, Y, and Z, and you have no say in the fucking process. And I think that's part of the reason why you see so many people struggling, and just whenever they graduate, they're like, okay, well, now I'm going to college. Now what?
But
My whole life's just been go to college.
It destroys the people's ability to self-actualize because they're not actually making their own choices.
There's still that facade that they'll say to you, you can be whatever you want to be. But what they really mean is you can be whatever you want to be, so as long as whatever you want to be fits within our standards.
Is what we tell you can be, basically.
Quick question.
I don't really see that, actually.
What?
Go on. So, at least for me, I was very fortunate because I had a mentor that I still have that was very, very, very pushing. Like, he had a lot of, like, goals that he set for me. And then once I reached those, he's like, all right, now it's your turn to make your own goals. So, like, now I'm on track to, like, graduate in 5 years with a master's degree, and then I'm planning on studying in London to get a PhD after that.
Wait, who do you not agree with?
When you say that, like, the education system is entirely, like, goal destroying,
Okay.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but I would say that the people that you surround yourself with also, I think, have a huge role in what happens with your goals.
Well, I meant like more at a K through 12 level. Like I agree with you that who you surround yourself with is important.
Hold on, Connor.
Self-actualize.
Let Connor say that. Say that again.
The K through 12 schooling environment isn't an environment that facilitates the individual's ability to self-actualize or determine his or her own goals that he or she wants to achieve.
I definitely I agree with that. Yeah,
it's about doing work.
But the people that you surround yourself with,
yes,
I think, will contribute more.
I agree with you too.
To your goal setting. Yeah.
But then that's a luck of the draw kind of thing. You're
exactly.
not always going to be in a situation where you.
We should really transition to diet here.
Yeah.
We have like about 10 minutes.
Made some good points here.
Yeah.
I think this was a great discussion. I really want to. This is going to touch on education and diet really quickly. I think part of schooling, and this still applies to college level even, because, I mean, how many of you guys go to the cafeteria and actually eat at your schools?
I do sometimes. The union's got some pretty good shit to eat, but like it's not on a frequent basis.
But how? I mean, it's.
I eat with people, so.
The food itself, though, it's pretty terrible, is it not?
Yes. Yes.
It depends.
Really fucking shitty food. And, I mean, all of us looking back at high school, how many of you had shitty cardboard pizza?
Oh, yeah. The food in high school was shit. It was just
Uncrustables, fucking cookies, bullshit
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I'm forced to have a meal plan in college.
And
I hate it. It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
And how many of you guys, like, actually, instead of bringing lunch every day, actually went out, like, actually ate at school?
I packed
most of the time.
Every single day.
Okay, yeah, don't everyone answer at once here.
All right, fine. I'll take this first. No, I did not. I brought my own lunch, and then when I turned 17, I got my license, so I just went out to eat every day. I never ate the school food because it was fucking nasty.
No, I packed every single day. Literally every single day.
I ate at school basically every day, and I regret that decision still.
I usually brought my own lunch, but unlike whoever mentioned about driving away, if you left school grounds during the school day, that's subject to punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have an open campus either. But my senior year, I was cool with the security guard, so I could leave. Which was
See, I got lucky. My junior year, I used to ditch my last class every year because the security guard thought I was a senior. We had gates all around our school, and there was only one exit, and I would literally walk out of it every single day.
Well, that's not a situation that's going to be bad when a school shooting happens, is it?
But the point I'm trying to make is our food is utter shit. You'd be offered like one apple, and the standard American diet is complete and utter shit.
Yeah, it's awful.
Blame corporatism. I took a class on this. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't even want to blame that. I just want to blame it's society. Honestly, we ingrain this idea that we have this necessity for this certain strict diet. Or
well, it's not just that. Like it's
we
time
teach things
too.
in school. Like, how many of you guys had to take a health class in high school?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I only went to it.
How many of you guys learned that the standard diet includes a 2,000 calorie a day intake?
Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
And that's utter horseshit. Every single person's metabolism varies. 2,000 calories is the baseline for an inactive person.
Yeah.
And the number of people that are inactive is the 600-pound fat fucks that sit in their couches all day and can't fucking move because they're so fat. There is no actual inactive person that is a normal weight that won't get up and fucking do some sort of movement that requires more than a 2,000 calorie diet every day. Yet the caloric intake from our shit food at schools was completely and utterly fucking terrible. The malnutrition that we experienced at schools through eating school, through the people. I mean, if we look at school, how many people do you think sat in line for 20, 30, 40 minutes waiting just to get food every single day from your school?
I went to a pretty big school, so it was a lot.
A decent amount.
Exactly. Most of the people that go to, I mean, it's not even just high school, it's middle school, and it's elementary school too that serve lunches for students. They serve this utterly shit food that's just so detrimental to your health. And they sit here and act like, oh, we're trying to help you here, we're furthering your education. When they're feeding you this shit food, they're destroying your body by feeding you this utter shit. And it's not just affecting your body itself. I mean, it's affecting your mind and all that sort of stuff. Why do you think kids are so lethargic at school? Because the shit they eat takes away from... I mean, to begin with, we look at it and see how many people don't want to be there to begin with. But then you go and eat this shit food that makes you feel like shit, makes you want to be there fucking less.
I mean, I'd imagine the nutritional value of just a school lunch in general is probably not that high.
No, it's shit.
Comparing our lunches to other countries' lunches, well, those other countries aren't great because they still incorporate meat into the diet. But the fact that we actually include such a little amount of food, like the food pyramid to begin with is utter and complete shit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Humans themselves should necessitate fruits, nuts, and seeds over every single thing. That should be the primary factor of our diet. If you want to eat meat, all power to you. I don't fucking care if you want to. You make the conscious decision to detriment your health through consuming animal products. I don't care if you want to. You can. Good for fucking you. The thing I want is for people to accept the fact that eating meat and animal products such as dairy, milk, eggs, yogurt, all that sort of shit, has negative health effects. And I mean,
it's so good though.
The negative reaction recently to the World Health Organization's report just proves it. The fact that there was 800 different studies, not just they were epidemiological studies. Not only that, but they brought forth mechanistic data proving that processed meat, and for most of you, you're going to sit here and say, well, processed meat is hot dogs and bacon and ham. No, it's not. It's any form of meat that goes through a process to marinate it, salting it, any sort of thing like that. Drying out beef jerky.
Heating?
Marinating steak. Marinating a hamburger. Throwing it on the grill throwing it on the grill, pan frying it, all release more carcinogens into that meat that already has carcinogens within it, such as methionines and things such as that. we're not even including the things like the this leads to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, atherosclerosis, which has been proved by in scientific studies to only be occurring in herbivores that consume meat products or animal products.
Cole, after this, you send me that link, and then I can link it in our video description for our viewers to see for themselves.
For the WHO report? Of course.
Yeah.
But everyone's sitting here saying, well, oh, they didn't research much on red meat. The issue with red meat is the fact that what's the most common ways that you cook a fucking hamburger or ribs or that rack of lamb? You're either throwing it on the grill, you're throwing it in a pan to fry it, or some form of direct heat that releases more carcinogens into that food.
And it tastes fucking amazing.
It
tastes fucking great.
It tastes great to you. I have no fucking problem with that. My issue is the fact that people still deny the detrimental health effects of these products. You can sit here and say, oh, it tastes great as much as you want, and say, oh, well, yeah, I'm not going to stop eating it. Good for you. All I expect of you is to accept the fact that it is detrimental to your health, and you are making a conscious decision to consume these products that affect you so negatively.
Humans are far from physiologically optimized to be eating any kind of processed animal product.
Any study of comparative anatomy, the greatest one being, oh god, I forgot his name. Connor.
Yeah.
The comparative anatomy,
If you don't get it, again, you can send it to me and I can link it in the description, and you can just discuss it.
Things like Dr. Walter Willett, the recent cohort studies from Harvard, and Dr. Walter Willett, who's the head of the research in Harvard, saying that our bodies don't care where we get our nutrients from, our amino acid profiles, our proteins, things like that. But plant-based foods are not only the healthiest, but the most sustainable. And we look at these things. To date, were we to switch to an entirely grass-fed beef, the amount of land it would take would be equivalent to every square centimeter of North America, Central America, and at least half of South America, just to feed the populace of the United States alone for grass-fed beef. The fact that every second we destroy 100 yards, a full football field's worth of rainforest, in order to make room for cattle grazing and soybean production for cattle. The fact that with the U.S. alone's production of plant-based foods for livestock feed alone could feed over 10 billion people fucking amazes me. Is the fact that we can sit here, let 7 billion people on this fucking planet, we let these third world countries starve, yet with that fucking...
Not exactly true, because we offer them billions of dollars in financial aid that never actually goes to the people that it's supposed to help, because it's taken by the dictators of those countries. So to say that we don't help them is kind of bullshit.
I'm not saying we don't help them. I'm saying that with the land that we provide, the land we use to feed our fucking selves, that we could sit here and instead of offering these places fucking money and shit like that their corrupt governments will never show them, we could send them food. We could send them shit like that so they can actually get
means to improvement of the quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, why the fuck are we sending money when we could? I mean, the fact is, people are being completely and utterly selfish for the sole reason that they. I mean, the greatest argument that most people use is, well, meat tastes good, or, well, we're natural hunters, or look at my, like, lines, I have canines. The sole fact is people cherry pick all these fucking reasons. And we sit here and say, well, I want to eat meat. Great for you. Raise your own beef, raise your own pork, raise your own chickens, and slaughter them your fucking self.
All right.
Because the sole fact is humans aren't hunters. We're not fucking hunters anymore. You can sit here and talk about as many of our ancestors as you want. Homo sapien being hunters, whatever the fuck you want. Unless you go out there and catch every single piece of your meat, you are not a hunter. When was the last time any of you went out and got the steak that you got by killing an animal yourself?
This summer.
I've never.
Yeah, no.
No. Yeah,
I don't eat steak though, so.
Deer hunting. So, I mean.
Hey Matt, what time are we at?
1
Yeah,
minute and 4 minutes, 53 seconds.
All right. Well,
We can probably bring this to a close.
yeah, we can bring this to a close and pick it back up next week.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
discussing macronutrient stuff and other like very specific.
yeah, we still have a fair deal to cover with that.
We
but
should
yeah,
do
that's fine.
a separate one on veganism and meat, I think.
Cole and I do that
yeah,
by
I agree.
ourselves if we wanted.
We could start doing a midweek episode and do that if the viewership actually wants to see that.
Okay, and
At some point, I'm gonna put out some logic video by myself simply because I missed last week's podcast.
that'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get someone who will try to defend meat eating that knows a lot more about it than I do, or that most of us do.
I know somebody who could do that.
Okay.
All right.
that'd be
Well, we
interesting.
can talk about that off
Yeah,
there.
we can do that as
Let's
well.
bring it to a
Yeah.
close.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to my rant.
Yep.
All right.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think. Give us topic ideas, and just we appreciate your feedback. So thank you again for watching, and good night.